Welcome back. At the Capitol, state lawmakers continue to work on proposals around immigration enforcement, fraud, and gun violence. But with the House still tied between Democrats and Republicans, that work, of course, has not been easy. Political reporter Danny Spiewak has a look at where some of the big items stand this session.
Early in this 2026 legislative session, we are already seeing the political realities of the most narrowly divided state legislature in the country. Minnesota's House of Representatives, of course, is still tied this year, 67-67, and we are seeing that tie create some complications in the committee process. For example, in a House Public Safety Committee this week, we saw immigration bills from the DFL go nowhere. We've also seen this play out in the fraud spectrum. One of the top bills this session to fight fraud is creating an Office of Inspector General statewide that could investigate fraud across the state. But Democrats and Republicans in the House are stuck blocking each other's proposals because House Democrats think that the BCA should be handling the fraud investigations, while the House Republicans think there should be a separate law enforcement division in this new office.
The things that we're not willing to give up on that the DFL seems to be pushing or the removal of the law enforcement piece. That's so important.
We think that there's enough independence already baked into the bill in other ways. Plus, we trust the sworn law enforcement officers at the BCA.
We also saw some talk about the midterm elections, and specifically a Senate Elections Committee that advanced a proposal on a bipartisan basis that would increase penalties for election intimidation or interference. We got a chance to sit down one-on-one with Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon, who said that he's not predicting that the Trump administration will try to employ any interference in the midterms, but he said he's prepared for that possibility.
What type of specific interference are you preparing for the potential of from the Trump administration when it comes to the midterms?
Yeah, and again, I want to emphasize it's not a prediction, but it is a precaution. So it could mean a lot of things. It could mean federal law enforcement personnel in and around polling places. It could mean a last-minute executive order. It could mean interference of some kind with the Postal Service delivering vote by mail. It could mean a lot of things. The only limitation here is our imagination.
Coming up this week on Monday, you'll have testimony in a House Fraud Committee from Governor Walz's new fraud czar, Tim O'Malley, who produced a report recently about how Minnesota should be handling fraud. And there are also going to be a couple of bills in discussion to commemorate late Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman, of course, who was killed along with her husband Mark in an assassination last June. At the Capitol, I'm Danny Spiewak, KARE 11 News.
You can watch the full interview with Secretary of State Steve Simon on KARE11.com. Pixar's first original hit in nearly a decade is leaping to the top of the box office. Hoppers opened this weekend with $46 million. Minnesota native Pete Docter is Pixar's chief creative officer and one of the executive producers on the movie. And of course, that is not where the Minnesota connections stop. A U of M beaver expert served as a consultant for Hoppers. Dr. Emily Fairfax helped the Pixar team create a realistic portrayal of beavers, which play a major role in the movie, including how they move, look, and sit.
I had given a talk at a webinar and I was going on about beavers, and I noticed that there were a couple of Pixar people in the audience virtually, and I thought, okay, that was cool, maybe they just like it. And then I had an email a few months later that said, hey, could you actually give a talk to Pixar about beavers? And that was the start of a 5-year journey.
Pixar even named one of the main characters after Fairfax, a research professor named Dr. Sam, short for Samantha E. Fairfax. And another fun fact, Fairfax's class notes in her own handwriting are on the whiteboards in university scenes throughout the movie. She's over the moon, and it was geeky for me to get to talk to her. Very fun. All right, high school hockey, part of Minnesota's identity, and the state tournament has a long storied history, but this year feels a little bit different. A man who played a key role in documenting that history was forced into an early retirement. Kent Erdahl followed along as he returned to the arena and witnessed how the community is showing up for him.
Everyone entering the Minnesota State Hockey Tournament knows they might leave with a thrilling or agonizing story.
We're gonna win today? Yes.
David LeVake spent more than 2 decades writing those stories for the Star Tribune.
In the course of 4 days, he probably had 25, 30 bylines. That might be undercounting it a little bit.
Dave LeVake from the Star Tribune, thanks for joining us today.
Nice to be here.
In past years, LeVake helped preview the tournament on KARE 11 and also co-wrote the definitive book, Tourney Time, back in 2020.
Gene Aldrich was the founder of this tournament. Yeah. He made it happen in St. Paul, and that's the one that stuck.
Look at all these crowds, and half of them probably have your book, right?
Michaela LeVake.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Says her dad's own story began to take an agonizing turn while he was working last year's tourney.
We knew there was something bad happening to his ability to function.
He was admitted about a week later into the hospital after the state tournament ended, and that was when we kind of found out everything.
Doctors diagnosed him with a rare neurological disease called leukodystrophy.
You lose motor function, you lose the ability to walk, the ability to speak, and then the ability to swallow, eat, chew, just like everyday life things that I think we all take really for granted is what you lose.
I see a smile.
Just advocated for the kids in the game, and in his absence, it's felt. It really is.
Benilde St. Margaret's hockey coach Ken Pauley says he'll never forget the time LeVake spent embedded with his team after Jack Jablonski was paralyzed in 2011.
Our whole idea was, you know what, how do we move forward with Jack, not move away from him? And I think that's the same thing when anyone's suffering. When David LeVake, suffering, you try to move forward the best you can with them.
That's why this season, Benilde hosted David LeVake Night to celebrate his contribution to the game. And another team, Northern Lakes, named him an honorary captain before its tourney tilt.
David went in the locker room and gave the boys a fist pump and wished them well as they were going into the tournament action.
That game didn't end in a thrilling victory. But even in the agony, there's a story of community.
It means the world to me and my family, and it's amazing to see all the strong relationships that he's built and how they have shown up for him time and time again. So that's really beautiful.
Say tourney time.
Tourney time. That is definitely what I will carry with me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David is just 50 years old, but the disease has moved incredibly fast. He recently entered hospice care in order to get more help dealing with the physical toll that it is taking. Michaela also launched a fundraising site to help deal with the financial toll, and she's not just grateful for the donations, she says she's been blown away by all the stories about the joy that her father brought so many. We're wishing your family lots of love. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.